Hi Year 10 and welcome to another video. Hopefully the sound will be a little bit better on this one. This time we're looking at this extract from the Kite Runner, which is actually one of my favourite books. Okay, it's a very sad story. And remember, we're focusing on question 4, and obviously I'm not going to be able to hear whether you say anything, but if you can, write down what you remember the focus of question 4 is. And you should have already started writing that it is an evaluation question. Okay, it's asking us to evaluate. Remember, the phrase is, to what extent do you agree? So the question this time is whether the narrator is mean and not a good friend. And remember, it will ask us, to what extent do you agree? So let's put some notes there to help us remember the question. So the narrator, I'm going to put equals, is mean and not a good friend. So we're looking for evidence that we agree with that, but we're also looking for other ideas. So do we think anything else, essentially? So let's read it and see what ideas we can come up with. When we were children, Hassan and I used to climb poplar trees in the drive of my father's house and annoy the neighbours by reflecting sunlight into their homes with a shard of mirror. Okay, let's stop already and think about what we found out. So this guy is the narrator, I, whoever he is, all right? So we've got this first person narrative. And it's from his viewpoint. So it's about whether he was a good friend to this guy, Hassan, we can assume. Well, already we're finding out that it says when we were children. So we know that they have known each other for a long time. Surely, as a reader, I'm thinking that's got to be relevant. This guy doesn't seem mean. If he's talking about when he was a child with this guy, he's known him for a long time. And then it tells us that they used to annoy the neighbours by reflecting sunlight into their home with a shard of mirror. So they're kind of playing a trick. Here's a nice word that you can use: conspiratorial. Okay, so it's this idea of kind of a conspiracy. They've got a secret together. They're playing tricks together. That doesn't sound like someone who's mean and not a good friend. That seems a sign of a close friendship to me because they share this bond. Okay, so I'm going to put a little note there. They're causing mischief together. Okay, my misspelling of mischief. I before E, except after C. So they're causing mischief together. So for me, I would say actually that I disagree. He's not mean and he's not a good friend. They've got this bond together, but maybe we're going to find out that it was this guy, the narrator, who put Hassan up to that, and maybe that would be evidence that he's mean. But I'm already, as a reader, thinking about that statement and making judgments in relation to it. We would sit across from each other on a pair of high branches, our naked feet dangling, our pockets filled with dried fruits, dried mulberries and walnuts. We took turns with the mirror as we ate mulberries, pelted each other with them, giggling, laughing. Well, again, there's loads in there. Remember, on this question, we've got to write about the methods. So I'm going to start thinking about the language here as well and what that's telling me. It says we would do this, our naked feet, our trousers, we took turns. All these phrases and words suggest that they are somehow a team, okay? So we've got these pronouns here, these inclusive pronouns, we, making them seem like a team. They're being described in the same way as well. Our naked feet dangling, our trouser pockets filled with dried mulberries and walnuts. So the fact that they're being described as the same adds into this idea of them kind of being a team and this bond between them. So I'm not really finding any evidence yet that they're mean and he's not a good friend. The fact that he says we took turns as well, from that I can infer that they are equal. We've got this sense of equality between them rather than a one-sided friendship where one is being mean and kind of maybe taking advantage of the other. And also, there's then this suggestion that they pelted each other. So if we think about this word, pelted, first thing we need to do is think about what type of word it is. It's describing an action, so therefore it must be a verb. It's what they did. And it basically means that they threw things at each other, but it's quite aggressive and it's quite violent. Okay, that could be evidence that he's mean because he's pelting him, but it says we pelted each other. Okay, so the idea is that actually they are both complicit in this, and complicit means like they're both to blame. They're both involved in this. And there's also a sense that although both of them can be mean, they kind of both know that what they're doing is wrong. So then we've got these giggling, laughing. Remember, these words that end ing like this are called present participles. And they're also showing that, just draw an arrow to there, actually they're both complicit. They both know what they're doing here. Now, one point to consider if we want to be really thinking perceptively and at those higher grades is that actually all the evidence is going against this. So we're saying actually, no, we don't agree. We've got other ideas. They're not mean. He's not mean, and he's not a good friend. He is a good friend. But actually, we're saying there's this sense of a bond between them, and they're conspiratorial, and they're complicit, and they're kind of almost like a team. But let's think about the fact that actually this is a first-person narrative. It's from his perspective. Now, if he was a mean and nasty person, maybe he wouldn't sort of give an honest account. So the fact that it's from his perspective means that he's not a reliable narrator necessarily. So by writing about him as the narrator, we're now starting to think about the kind of structural methods as well as the language methods. And whilst that is not okay on question 2, because that's just on language, and question 3, because that's just on structure, that's absolutely fine for question 4 evaluation. You can write about any methods you like. Okay. And also, if we think about like the focus of this paragraph, it's all about this their kind of memory together. So the fact that it's looking at his memory, and that's kind of like the whole paragraph is a memory, shows that it's important. It shows this significance for the narrator. And this is obviously someone that he cares about deeply because he's remembered all this information. Okay. I can still see Hassan up on that tree. Now, again, that's a really nice quotation that supports what we've just said. I can still see Hassan. Okay, so this is his memory of the other person. Just going to get a highlighter to make that a little bit easier. Kind of links to this idea of the importance of the memory. If you've got a highlighter, you can do that too. I can still see Hassan up on that tree, sunlight flickering through the leaves on his almost perfectly round face, a face like a Chinese doll chiselled from hard wood, his flat broad nose and slanting narrow eyes like by bamboo leaves, eyes that looked, depending on the light, gold, green, even sapphire. So again, let's have a look at this description of this boy who he's supposed to be being mean to and supposed to not be a kind friend. He describes his face as perfectly round. He pictures the sunlight flickering. He describes his face as chiseled, almost as if it's been crafted or made to sort of look perfect, like something like it's been sculpted. And his eyes are described as gold, green, even sapphire. So we've again got connotations of kind of preciousness here. So all these words are really emphasizing how deeply he cares about this person. It's made a lasting impression on him. So this visual imagery here, if we're thinking about our techniques that the writer employs through the language that they've chosen, is all already really significant. Right, let's look at the next verse. Okay, let's look at the next paragraph. It says, sometimes up in those trees I talked Hassan into firing walnuts with his slingshot at the neighbour's one-eyed German shepherd. Now, hopefully straight away you can already see that actually we are now getting a sense that he was maybe mean and not a good friend, because it says that he talked Hassan into it. So again, that's really suggesting that there is actually a power imbalance there. Hassan never wanted to, but if I asked, really asked, he wouldn't deny me. Okay, let's write about some of those bits there then. So we have got a sense maybe that there is a bit of an abuse of power here. And whereas before they seemed a team, here in this second paragraph, we've got a building sense of inequality. To talk someone into something, the fact that we know he never wanted to, and the fact that he includes this phrase here, really asked, emphasizes a sort of persuasion, doesn't it? And the fact that it sort of repeats it, he wouldn't deny me, Hassan never denied me anything. So we've got a sense that this boy, he doesn't want to give in. Or he doesn't want to do wrong, I would say. So not only does Hassan not want to, but we can see the narrator encourages him, even though Hassan knows it is wrong. So Hassan does have this sense of right and wrong. He has the morality, but he doesn't want to disappoint. So if I put Hassan knows what he's doing is wrong. Now equally, what's even worse is that this guy, the narrator, he knows that Hassan didn't want to do it, but he persuades him anyway. And that's sort of even worse, isn't it? To encourage someone to do something that you know that they feel uncomfortable with is actually quite disrespectful. So if we're thinking about whether this narrator is mean and not a good friend, I would say definitely so. So we've almost got, again, if we're thinking about structure, we've got two quite contrasting viewpoints in the first paragraph and then in the second paragraph. And he was deadly with the slingshot. Hassan's father, Ali, used to catch us and get mad, or as mad as someone as gentle as Ali could ever get. He would wag his finger and wave us down from the tree. He would take his mirror and tell us what his mother had told him, that the devil shone mirrors too, shone them to distract Muslims during prayer. And he laughs while he does it, he always said, scowling at his son. Now again, that's interesting. The father scowls at his son, but he doesn't scowl at the narrator. So the narrator seems to be getting away with it. This word scowling here, this verb showing sort of a father's disappointment in his son. Yes, father, Hassan would mumble, looking down at his feet, but he never told on me, never told that the mirror, like shooting walnuts at the neighbour's dog, was always my idea. So I just want to pick up on a few other bits here. The fact that Hassan says yes, father, and mumbles, this bit here is firstly suggesting that Hassan, if I just move it up, is obedient to his father. And the fact that he mumbles is a sign of his submissiveness. So here we see that this is the way this boy is being presented, Hassan. It does seem like the narrator takes advantage, because we see him being obedient and submissive with his father, and essentially we see him being the same with the narrator, obedient and submissive. And then it says, but he never told on me. Okay, so we've got this sense of loyalty, really, and there's two ways of seeing this. Maybe the child does this, Hassan, because he loves this friend and he wants to protect him. But equally, it may be that he feels obliged to, in some sense, I guess, because he feels that this narrator is kind of bullying him a little bit. So whether this is out of loyalty or whether this is some kind of sense of sort of bullying, we don't really know. But there we can see that we've really explored this idea of whether the narrator is mean and not a good friend, but we've also included our other ideas there as well. So let's just think, because there's been some quite key vocabulary with this one as well that we've really got to understand using. So this is quite a short video for you in terms of homework, and it might be that you want to go and look at these words so that you're really comfortable with them. So firstly, we talked about the fact that they were complicit in what they were doing, this sense of doing something together and both doing it into kind of secrecy, and this idea of being conspiratorial, causing mischief together. You might also, lots of words beginning with C, you might also want to think about how the narrator is very complimentary of Hassan at the beginning. And you might also want to think about the fact that he is not a reliable, we cannot rely on him, he's not a reliable narrator. You may also want to use words like superior and inferior, thinking about which of these characters is superior to the other one and why. And also there's this kind of, I don't know if we said this earlier, this nostalgic sense at the beginning that when the narrator is talking about when they were children, certainly in that first paragraph, and he's describing Hassan, he's kind of looking back longingly. That's what nostalgic means, kind of looking back longingly into the past. And that other word that we talked about, in fact, we've got it just here, is this idea of submissiveness, the way that Hassan kind of submits to the narrator in the same way that he submits to his father. Okay, so I will be looking for you to use these kind of words when you're analysing the text in lesson. I know we haven't looked at these last two paragraphs, but I think actually we've got so much there. I think it's important that you read the rest of that, and if you've got any other ideas about what you want to say, then that's fine. But I've already read this, and that the focus seems to move away from me from the narrator and his friendship with Hassan onto something else. But obviously it's up to you if you want to pull some more ideas from there. Okay, hopefully that video is useful.